So, Tyler, tell me all about the menu today. The Menu is a film whose recipe of a script comes from Seth Reiss and Will Tracy, with prepared direction by Mark Mylod, starring Anya Taylor-Joy as a young woman attending a prestigious VIP restaurant operated on a private island by a charismatic yet enigmatic celebrity chef played by Ralph Fiennes. But without spoiling anything, it turns out our chef has chosen every guest for the sake of punishing them all this evening. Except, of course, Anya Taylor-Joy. Did you attend this movie at TIFF? I wish I had, but as we all know, Taylor Swift prevented me from purchasing these tickets, and Ticketmaster clearly had no responsibility whatsoever. But as you know... No, I don't, actually. None of us. I actually work as a prep cook, so I was obviously looking forward to seeing a more satirical look at how the culinary industry is portrayed, but also a little worried that it was going to be nonstop shitting on the customers, especially if they're rich. Don't you cook for rich people? Well, so much for not knowing. Yes. And some of the things they have requested over the years have been some of the most fucking stupid things I've ever heard in my life. Which, look, I hate making gluten-free stuff, I hate making dairy-free stuff, but I can't cure people of their allergies or sensitivities, so, not much I can do there. But asking for a third of a serving of nachos or a quarter of a Caesar salad split onto 3 plates? How much weed did your mom smoke while you were pregnant? I mean, what the fuck? You know your bosses might see this, right? Hey, as long as I don't name names, they can't do shit about it. Fair enough, but getting back on track, did the movie live up to your expectations? Yes, this is a deliciously entertaining film. One of the better servings I've had all year. Okay, seriously, cut out the critic buzzword bullshit. No one uses those words, and that's why no one reads their shit. Just tell me what works and what doesn't. Fine. Well, watching this movie, I never would have thought it'd be made by the guy who did Ali G in the House or What's Your Number, but like Todd Field's work in Tar, obviously directors need to take 10 years off from directing in order to become a hell of a lot better, but Mark Mylod's directing is the kind where you'd have to look really close to even notice that there is a visual style with the recurring motifs he uses to build up suspense of this island's atmosphere. Seeing as how this takes place on an island, I imagine it'd be claustrophobic. Yeah, it has all the moments of build-up you would expect, where the villains lock the doors behind everybody while the protagonist looks on with suspicion, or the chef subtly, or not so subtly, stares her down because there's just something different about her. But the cinematography is actually pretty sneaky. What I said about having to look real close to even notice, there are a ton of what are called two shots, where an actor is in each the left and the right side of the frame. And some of them are pretty basic. One character speaks, the other reacts while they're just sitting down eating dinner. But there are other times where a customer and a chef share the frame, sometimes with the chef out of focus to make them look even more creepy. And especially when shit really starts to go down, the mere presence of a chef in the corner makes you feel boxed in with the characters, because these characters, figuratively and literally, have nowhere to run. There's even some small but clever uses of over-the-shoulder shots that make you feel like you're spying on them the same way as the chefs are, or you're part of this helpless crowd just staring at all of this carnage. Please tell me the food was beautiful to look at. Well, of course it was. I mean, for the first 20 minutes, it was the most entertaining part of the film. There's so much I want to praise about this movie, but it would be spoiling the experience. I mean, the camera work presenting the dishes with these close-ups and 360 shots in the most delicious part of the dish, it looked like they were actually shooting a professional cooking show. It was that spot on. The cooking and plating techniques they do were so realistic that yesterday, before I even saw the movie, I had to help plate a 10-course meal with a palate cleanser in almost the exact same fashion as these chefs. Black plates to make the colors pop and leap off. Elegant patterns of scallops, spoon spread sauce, putting microgreens in this one part of the plate with only seconds to do it before the plates go out. The filmmakers have clearly done their research. They obviously have a lot of respect for the work we put into our dishes, and just seeing that on screen put a huge smile on my face. Is it violent? Not as much as I'd hoped. There's a lot of handheld camera work where it happens that can get a little distracting, but to the movie's credit, most of the violence is actually implied off screen, and then the carnage is shown afterwards in more detail, so it doesn't really matter how startled you are by violence. Anyone can enjoy it and still be unsettled. And the best part about each kill is that there's a metaphor behind it that ties into the social satire of the frustrations that come with being a chef and how they might fantasize taking out their frustrations on the customers they hate most, even if they've never seen their faces or don't even know their names, which I can safely say happens a hell of a lot. It's interesting to hear you praise the social commentary of a film. Usually that drives you so insane. Great thing to say in front of one of your patients, Doc. And for the record, it's because most movies that have social commentary, they don't commentate. They lecture you about how their side is right, their side only, and how anyone who disagrees with them is usually a straight white capitalist piece of shit. Aren't all the customers in this rich people who take the service industry for granted? Yeah. And don't they get punished for it? Yeah. So what makes this any different? Well, for starters, some customers actually deserve it more than others. A couple of them really haven't done that much harm to the chefs, but when they are guilt-tripped into understanding what they did wrong, then you can kind of understand why they're there. But the main thing is, the movie actually understands how satire works. You need to be able to make fun of everyone involved, and so they take shots at people who make food and take food. Example. That's the thing. I can't really talk about the themes that much without mentioning the performances first. Go on. I mean, it goes without saying that Anya Taylor-Joy gives a great performance, and I love that she's becoming more of a household name. She's easily the most sympathetic character in the entire film because she's the only customer not from the upper class. So whenever someone makes a pretentious analogy about the food or presents something on the plate that serves no purpose, she's the only one that gets up and goes, hey, is the food supposed to taste good or look good? Because you can do both, but it's only rarely when it happens, and all the other customers are really acknowledging what looks great about the food as opposed to what actually tastes good about it. And that's actually what makes her dynamic between Ralph Fiennes so engaging, and Ralph Fiennes was absolutely incredible. He's the main actor to check out within this movie. His facial expressions and soft-spoken line delivery, especially during the more fucked up moments, gave me chills just listening to him describe the menu in such a vivid, exquisite detail and pretending to like the customers for such a long time until he picks the right moment to reveal his ulterior motive. And this isn't like all the other villains that he's played. Normally he's just a sadist or one of the stuck-up pricks who are being tortured in the movie. But here, once his master plan is revealed and he explains what drove him and his chefs to his point, does actually make you feel sorry for him. He's murdering people. Trust me, they don't ignore how homicidal a maniac he is. But still, throughout his entire career, he's had people tell him what to make and how to make it, mainly by people who don't have the skill set or the passion for cooking, something his other chefs can relate to and would explain why they're so keen to go along with or even contribute to such a fucked up plan. But at the same time, he and his chefs have developed this complex that a lot of chefs have. I've seen it myself, and hell, I've even acted that way before a bunch of times, where if you make a dish that you feel proud of and you have put so much work and effort into it, only for a customer to say, it sucks, I like it, but for a completely different reason, or ask for a slightly different variation that doesn't really make all that much sense, then all of a sudden in the chef's mind, it's the customer who's wrong and they're not smart enough to get it. And when they look at these spoiled pricks at first and their reactions towards the food, it would seem they're right about it. And sure enough, there are plenty of times where I would still say that there are some customers who, yeah, they don't fucking get it. I mean, one guy complained about blackened shrimp being overcooked. It's fucking blackened shrimp. I mean, must have a shrimp-sized brain, but getting back on topic, in comes Taylor-Joy, who values the simpler things in life, and is the only one who's consistently brave enough to point out what most of us chefs hate to admit. It's our job to cook what customers want to eat, whether it's fucking stupid or not, and whether they even appreciate it or not. Needless to say, he doesn't take that very kindly, but he also recognizes her lower status and humility compared to the others, and he's willing to... It's really hard to describe. He feels conflicted on what he should do with her, but he's willing to treat her differently than the other customers. So tell me about the side characters. There were only a few that I was entertained by. Janet McTeer starts off the same way most of us would picture a typical food critic. She tries to come up with the most profound buzzwords that describe her meals. She has a lackey with her that pats her on the back every single time or even tries to add his own spin to her articles. But Then as it becomes more violent and Fiennes points out some examples of how her profession can hurt other people's restaurants and even self-esteem, you can see in her eyes that she does start to feel a little guilty making her writing the star of the show. I would have liked for them to point out that a food critic, or really a critic of any kind, has no power without viewers to listen or trust their words, but I think, and I hope, most of you can really piece that part together. But out of all the side performers, Chau was really good at Fiennes' right-hand maitre d'. I haven't seen Chau in anything since Downsizing, which, by the way, she deserved a fucking Oscar nomination for, and it's not racist to have an immigrant have an accent in a movie. If you seriously think that's racist, you haven't met that many immigrants in her position. Back on track. Sorry. Anyways, you know how when you're in customer service, you have to be a professional with angry, dumb customers and wait until afterwards to call them a piece of shit? Well, this is the one night where she can finally unleash her fury over everyone she's had to put up with. Every workplace revenge fantasy, she does. And she does with the same disgruntled, unhappy look on her face that I think kind of makes it abundantly clear why most customer service people don't actually lash out and quit or get fired for it, because at the end of the day, it wouldn't really make them all that happy even if they were to tell customers how they really feel. But at the same time, watching her say no to customers when they want something else, not even getting violent with them, but just the sight of her politely saying, "You're not getting it," was such a shock to my system. I never see that happen. In fact, there are servers I know at work I can't recommend this movie to because they're gonna come up with some ideas. I know I have. And I will say, Nicholas Hoult as the boyfriend of Anya Taylor-Joy pissed me off a little too much at first because I felt like he was too dumb a character not to notice how fucked up everything was, and I didn't buy the chemistry that he had between her. But once his punishment comes around, I won't spoil whether he lives or dies, but in all honesty, it wouldn't make any difference. It was so satisfying to watch, and it involves a twist I did not see coming that makes a hell of a lot more sense. No love for John Leguizamo? To tell you the truth, I forgot he was even there. How's that even possible? He's the biggest name compared to the others you just mentioned. Well, that's the big problem with the script. It's so focused on Anya Taylor-Joy and Ralph Fiennes with how long their conversations are and how much is revealed about their backstories. Meanwhile, every other actor is relegated to these generic one-liners that give very surface-level background about who they are. There are these free, corrupt Silicon Valley types whose names I never got, and that's it. Leguizamo is your typical douchey, washed-up actor, and that's it. For an ensemble cast, a lot of them feel like background characters, and when the chefs start killing the customers, it's hard to feel scared for people when you only know their worst qualities. Well, I'm sure most of these characters are comic relief that commentate on upper-class ignorance. Yeah, they are, but that's the other thing. The movie wasn't actually as funny as I'd hoped it'd be. There are some funny moments, don't get me wrong, but a lot of the humor is just actors improvising off of each other, and for me, the best improv in movies are parts where actors come up with something when the others aren't prepared for it and don't know how to react, and it still has to fit what the character would say and what would happen within the script. Here, these people are not just improvising lines, they're kind of making up their scenes and characters during the parts where it honestly wouldn't make any difference, and it goes on for so long without a punchline or resolution that the improv doesn't actually feel like comedy, which feels weird. But other than that, the movie was good. Yeah, for all the problems I had, there was never a dull moment thanks to the great cast, surprisingly skilled director, and one of the better scripts that I've seen all year. Definitely check it out if you haven't already. Well, Tyler, I'm glad that you have finally chosen a movie to see in theaters that you actually wanted to see and got satisfaction of, and I must reiterate, continue to do that strictly. Do not go and see movies that you feel as if you have to see, and that includes Strange World. Remember that for our next session. And that's all the time we have for today. If you have seen the menu, let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews. Be sure to like and subscribe, and check us out on Patreon. Take care.